Florida says the Healthy SNAP changes took effect April 20th, 2026, and describes the restricted categories as soda, energy drinks, candy, and ultra-processed, shelf-stable prepared desserts. Florida also says all Florida SNAP retailers are required to implement the changes and that retailers should work with their point-of-sale vendors. Special investigative podcast, When Food Assistance Becomes a Battle, a Florida SNAP recipient's formal complaint. Tonight, we bring you a story about Florida families who rely on SNAP food assistance and one family's demand for answers. This is not simply a complaint about a cookie. It is not simply about a muffin. It is not simply about cake, candy, or soda. This is a complaint about how a government food assistance policy is being experienced by families at the grocery store checkout. It is a complaint about inconsistency. It is a complaint about confusion. It is a complaint about dignity. And it is a demand for an investigation into whether retailers and point-of-sale systems are applying Florida's Healthy SNAP restrictions consistently and according to the actual rules. Florida says its Healthy SNAP changes are intended to promote healthier food choices for low-income households. The state says that beginning April 20th, 2026, SNAP benefits cannot be used for soda, energy drinks, candy, and ultra-processed, shelf-stable prepared desserts. But the question being raised by this complaint is, what happens when the rules reach the stores and consumers experience different results at different retailers? The complaint begins with a Florida SNAP recipient speaking not only for himself, but for families who may be experiencing similar problems. The message is, I am asking for a formal investigation. Not simply an explanation at the cash register. Not simply a customer service response. An actual investigation. An investigation into how these restrictions are being implemented. An investigation into retailer practices. An investigation into product classifications. An investigation into point-of-sale systems. And an investigation into whether families are being treated consistently and fairly. This is about more than one family narrator. The complaint is personal, but the concern is much bigger than one household. The person bringing this complaint is a single father raising two children. He says times are difficult. He says SNAP benefits are important to his family's ability to purchase food. And he says that what is happening at grocery stores has affected not only him, but his children. And that's why he wants this complaint heard. Because children didn't create these rules. Children didn't create the economy. Children didn't choose their family's income. And children shouldn't have to feel ashamed because their parent is using an EBT card. What the family is experiencing. The complaint describes an experience that many consumers can understand. You walk into a store. You see a product. You believe it's something you can purchase. You put it in the cart. You go to the checkout. You swipe your EBT card. And suddenly, the transaction doesn't go through. Now you're standing there trying to figure out what happened. Was the product actually restricted? Was it classified incorrectly? Did the retailer system interpret the product differently? Is the database wrong? Is the retailer applying a rule differently? Or is the state rule itself being interpreted differently than consumers understand it? These are the questions this complaint wants answered. One retailer accepts it, another doesn't narrate it. And this is one of the most important allegations in the complaint. The family describes being able to purchase certain products with an EBT card at some retailers while encountering restrictions at other retailers. For example, the complaint describes being able to purchase Oreos at 7-Eleven and Winn-Dixie while encountering different results at Walmart. The complaint also raises concerns about experiences at other retailers, including Dollar Tree and Publix. Now, this does not automatically prove that any particular retailer is intentionally violating Florida law. There may be technical explanations. Florida itself tells retailers to work with their point-of-sale vendors to implement Healthy SNAP changes. That makes one question especially important. Are all of these systems actually applying the same rules correctly? The question about cookies, and this is where we need to be very precise. Florida's official Healthy SNAP material does include cookies such as Oreos and Chips Ahoy, among examples associated with the restricted prepared dessert category. So the complaint is not claiming that Florida's official website never mentions cookies. The complaint is raising a different question. Why can a consumer encounter different treatment for products from retailer to retailer? Why does one store's system accept a product while another store's system rejects it? And are retailers correctly applying the state's actual categories? That's the question. Then there is the blueberry muffin. A simple packaged blueberry muffin, something the children enjoy for breakfast. The complaint describes being unable to purchase certain products like this at Walmart using SNAP. And that's where the frustration becomes personal. Because the parent isn't thinking, I'm going to challenge a government nutrition policy today. They're thinking, my kids like these muffins. This is what they eat for breakfast. Why can't I buy them? And when the EBT card says no, the family has to deal with the consequences. The children narrator. The children are at the center of this complaint. Kids want cookies with milk. Kids want snacks. Kids want breakfast foods. Kids have birthdays. Kids want birthday cake. And a low-income child is not less deserving of a birthday celebration than a child from a wealthy household. That's one of the emotional arguments behind this complaint. The parent is not saying everything unhealthy should be free. The parent is saying, my children should not be made to feel less than other children because our family needs assistance. The birthday cake. Think about the significance of a birthday cake. For one family, it might be a $30 purchase that barely gets noticed. For another family, $30 can be a major expense. But the child doesn't necessarily understand the difference. They just know it's their birthday. They want cake. They want cake. They want candles. They want to celebrate, and the parent wants to provide that experience. That's why the complaint says this issue is about more than nutrition. It's about family life. We followed the rules. The complaint also raises another important issue. Families receiving SNAP benefits have eligibility requirements. The person bringing this complaint describes having to cooperate with child support-related requirements involving the child's other parent. He describes a sanction being placed on his case and having to provide information as required to maintain benefits. He says the family complied. Child support obligations were established. The family continued dealing with the requirements. And now the frustration is, after doing everything required of me to maintain these benefits, why am I being subjected to additional restrictions at the grocery store that I did not understand or agree to? That is the question being presented. This is not Humana's healthy benefit card. Another major point in the complaint concerns the difference between SNAP and private health benefit programs. Some health insurance plans provide members with separate healthy food benefits. Those programs can have very specific rules. But SNAP is different. Florida describes SNAP as a program providing nutritional support to low-income households. So the complaint argues, do not confuse a government food assistance program with a private insurance wellness benefit. The recipient is saying, I signed up for a healthy food rewards program. The recipient is saying, I qualified for food assistance, and that distinction matters to the people affected. POHU decided this. The complaint also asks, who designed this system? Who recommended these restrictions? Who determines the categories? Who determines whether a product is eligible? Who programs the computer? Who classifies the UPC? Who updates the database? Who investigates errors? Who is responsible when a family goes to the register and the system rejects something? Florida says retailers must implement the changes and work with point-of-sale vendors. So the complaint is asking for transparency about that entire chain. The complaint is especially concerned about the possibility that retailers may be applying restrictions differently. Again, this is not a declaration that every retailer is doing something intentionally wrong. It is a demand to investigate. Because if Florida establishes the rules, consumers should not have to navigate a different version of those rules at every supermarket. The complaint asks, are retailers following the same standards? Are their computer systems synchronized correctly? Are products classified correctly? Are eligible products being rejected? Are retailers restricting products beyond what Florida's actual guidance requires? Those questions deserve answers. The humiliation narrator. The complaint describes something that government databases don't capture very well. Embarrassment. Imagine standing in line. Your children are with you. You have groceries in your cart. The EBT card is declined. You have to put something back. People are waiting behind you. You don't know whether the person behind you understands what's happening. You may feel like they're looking at you. You may feel ashamed. You may feel embarrassed. You may feel like you're being treated differently because you're poor. And that feeling can stay with you long after you leave the store. The discrimination concern. The complaint goes further. It raises concerns about discrimination and prejudice. It argues that policies affecting low-income families can have serious consequences for communities that are already economically disadvantaged. It also raises concerns about racial impact, particularly for Black families. Now, these are serious allegations. They should be investigated rather than simply declared as proven facts. The appropriate question is there evidence of discriminatory treatment or discriminatory impact? Look at the data. Look at complaints. Look at transaction records. Look at retailer differences. Look at affected communities. Look at whether similarly situated customers are being treated differently. That's how a serious investigation should work. This is not about saying everything should be allowed. The complaint does not need to argue that every food product should be allowed. That's not the strongest argument. The stronger argument is whatever rules exist should be clear, lawful, transparent, consistently implemented, and accurately programmed. If a product is restricted, tell consumers. If it isn't restricted, don't incorrectly block it. If the system is wrong, fix it. If a retailer is confused, provide clarification. If a family is being harmed by an error, give them a way to challenge it. What the complaint is demanding. So what is being requested? First, a formal investigation. Second, an investigation into retailer implementation. Third, an investigation into point-of-sale systems and product classifications. Fourth, an investigation into reports of inconsistent treatment among retailers. Fifth, a review of whether consumers are being given accurate and understandable information about what products are restricted. Sixth, a review of the program's impact on low-income families and children. Seventh, a review of potential discriminatory effects and civil rights concerns. And finally, corrective action where violations, errors, or inconsistent implementation are found. Hash a request for accountability narrow. The complaint is not asking government officials to simply say, that's the rule. It's asking, show us the rule. Show us how it's being implemented. Show us who is responsible. Show us why consumers are receiving different results. And if the program is functioning correctly, prove it. If the retailers are implementing it correctly, prove it. If the product classifications are accurate, prove it. If there is no discriminatory impact, show the evidence. That's what accountability looks like. The fear of where this could go. There is also a concern about what happens next. Today, the conversation is about soda, candy, prepared desserts, cookies, other packaged products. But consumers are asking what's next? Juice, cereal, more breakfast foods, more snacks, more products? Again, the question isn't whether every one of these foods should be unrestricted. The question is, where does government control over food purchases stop? And what safeguards exist to prevent the program from becoming increasingly restrictive without meaningful public understanding or oversight? What should happen now? The complaint calls for more thought, more transparency, more consistency, and more oversight. It asks officials to look at whether the program should be suspended, modified, clarified, or otherwise reviewed if the investigation identifies serious problems. It asks officials not to dismiss families as simply complaining about unhealthy food, because that's not the argument. The argument is, we deserve to know exactly what the rules are, and we deserve to have those rules applied consistently. And this complaint isn't intended to stand on words alone. There can be receipts, there can be photographs, there can be product packaging, there can be UPC numbers, there can be records of transactions, there can be examples from multiple retailers, and that evidence can help determine whether the problem is isolated or whether there's a larger pattern. The final warning. The complaint is also a formal warning that if these concerns are not properly investigated and addressed, the complainant is prepared to pursue further legal remedies. That does not mean that a lawsuit has already established that Florida or any retailer violated the law. It means the complainant is putting the government and other responsible parties on notice that he believes his rights and the interests of similarly situated families deserve serious review. The request is simple: investigate, explain, correct, and if wrongdoing is found, take action. At the end of the day, this story isn't really about Oreos. It's not about Chips Ahoy. It's not about a blueberry muffin. It's not even about cake. It's about what happens when a government program designed to provide food assistance reaches a family that is already struggling. It's about what happens when that family goes into a store and doesn't know what its EBT card will or won't purchase. It's about what happens when one retailer says yes and another says no. It's about what happens when a parent has to put food back in front of their children. It's about the embarrassment. It's about the confusion. It's about the feeling of being treated differently. And it's about whether those experiences are isolated incidents or evidence of a larger problem. Florida says Healthy SNAP is intended to help low-income households obtain more nutritious food, but a program can have a legitimate goal and still deserve scrutiny over how it is implemented. That's the heart of this complaint. Not give us everything, but give us clarity. Not ignore the rules, but apply the rules consistently. Not let retailers do whatever they want, but make sure retailers follow the same rules. And not don't care about nutrition, but don't forget the human beings who are living under the policy. The message to Florida narrator: to the state of Florida, listen to the families, listen to the parents, listen to the children. Look at the receipts, look at the rejected transactions, look at the retailer systems, look at the data, look at the complaints and investigate. If the program is working exactly as intended, tell the public. If there are errors, fix them. If retailers are confused, clarify the rules. If families are being unfairly affected, correct the problem. If there is evidence of discrimination, address it. And if the program needs to be changed, change it. Closing news anchor. Because food assistance should never become a source of humiliation. A parent shouldn't have to feel ashamed because they're feeding their children with an EBT card. A child shouldn't have to feel different because their family is struggling. And a consumer shouldn't have to visit 3 or 4 stores just to figure out which one will accept their benefits for a particular product. This is not just about food. It's about fairness. It's about consistency. It's about transparency. It's about accountability. It's about civil rights. And above all, it's about human dignity. The question now is not simply, can someone buy a cookie? The question is, are the rules being applied fairly, consistently, and accurately to every Florida family that depends on SNAP? And that is a question worth investigating. This has been a special investigative report examining Florida's Healthy SNAP program, retailer implementation, consumer experiences, and the formal concerns being raised by Florida families. The complaint has been made, the questions have been raised. Now it's time for answers. End of report.